Welcome to the Focus Advisor podcast, where we discuss how you, the independent financial advisor, can grow your business. In this episode, I speak with an advisor who's been in the business over 35 years, and he's got a wealth of knowledge to share. One thing we touched upon was how he started right before the crash of 1987, and how his timing was actually great because of that. Because he's been in the business so long, over 35 years, that means he's been in a lot of market cycles. Most financial advisors just don't make it that long, but his business worked because he worked really hard at it, and now he's an independent financial advisor. He was at a big bank for a long time, and in 2021, he finally jumped to becoming independent. We talk about that move. We talk about the makeup of his team, how he is developing his team, how he's growing his business from a new client perspective, and then we talk about marketing and, really importantly, differentiation. There's hundreds of thousands of advisors out there, so differentiation is key, both in messaging and in execution. This is a short conversation. It's 25 minutes, but it's packed with years of wisdom. And if you can't tell, we have similar haircuts, and our name is very similar. Mike is my dad. I learned a lot about the advisory business itself from him in a very unfiltered way. And in this conversation, I'm sure you will too. Enjoy. So let's start with, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Mike Ross. I am a longtime financial advisor. I spent 34 years at one of the big banks, went independent in 2021. And then I have a couple side projects. I have a couple properties I'm a property manager on, and I also have written one book and I'm working on a second one. And going through that process is synergistic with the financial advisor stuff, but it's a little bit different. So that's the breadth of things I do.
Just to clarify the actual role of financial advisor, because I think you have specific opinions on this, what do you view as the role of a financial advisor?
Well, when properly arranged, the financial advisor is the client's first call with anything financial. Not the accountant, not the attorney, not the insurance agent, not the 401k provider, their financial advisor. That person is compensated in a way that does not compromise their objectivity, and that's a subject we can go very deeply into if you want to, but they're on call all the time. And there are many circumstances where they pull others in that have niche information, niche knowledge, but the real financial advisor is the hub and the wheel and not a product specialist.
Got it. So take me back to the very beginning. How did you get into this business in the first place?
I moved back to my hometown when I got out of the military. I was promised a job in another area. That promise didn't come to fruition, and so I literally picked up the phone book and called Merrill Lynch and said, "What's a financial advisor do?" I had no preconceptions of what I was supposed to do. I just tried to be as much of a sponge as possible and just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And that was when I was 27, and now I'm 65. So I've been doing it a long time.
What year was that?
That was 1987.
Okay. So you're right at the beginning of a tough market.
Well, so I went into production in the summer of 1987 with really no clients. So when October of 97 came up, you had all these other gentlemen, and it was primarily gentlemen in the office that were panicky. Side note, back then, under 5% of all financial advisors were females. Now about 30% are. So that's one of the changes in the industry. But so they were all running around in a bit of a panic in October of 1987, but I didn't have any clients. So I kind of benefited from it in some ways, because as many of those people retired or left the firm, I got clients out of that. So it actually was a good thing for me. And what's forgotten about 1987 is that when you look at the stock market, the Dow Jones, the S&P, whatever you want to use, and you compare the beginning of 1987 prices and values to the end of 1987 prices and values, the end was higher than the beginning. It was just a very cataclysmic fourth quarter to get us there.
I see. So you talked about the demographic makeup of the business. What does your team look like now? Who is involved in your business?
So when I left the big bank, I brought with me two assistants. No other financial advisors, but two assistants, one of which had been with me and continues to be with me for over 25, well, approaching 25 years. And the other one had been with me for 10 years. One of them was kind of the client's Mr. Fix-It. She would handle all the administrative stuff, and she was very knowledgeable about when to bring me in and when she could handle things. And the other one was kind of behind the curtains, and she did a lot of technology stuff for us. She really didn't get it. She really wasn't client facing, but she was instrumental in us kind of progressing. In the last 2.5 years, I brought on three other people for a variety of different reasons. One of them is doing a lot of the back-end analytics for portfolios. Another one, I have offices in three different spots, but about a half of my clients remain in the little town in the San Joaquin Valley of California where I began, Bakersfield, California. My senior assistant wants to live there forever, and God bless her. But she likes working from home, and there have been reasons in the past where that's important to her. So because we also rent out offices, I needed someone in the office. So I brought in someone fresh out of college earlier this year to do that. And the other thing was I hired someone a couple years ago to do one or two things, and she just kept we just kept adding to her portfolio because she was so competent at different things. So I brought essentially three people into my staffing. I also have a fractional chief financial officer and a fractional HR person too, just because I don't need that a lot, but I need it a little bit.
So you have some like core W-2 employees, and then you have some kind of contractors as well.
I do.
How do you invest in your business to help you guys like stay competitive?
So let's take a couple steps back on that. So we very recently did a valuation, and the valuation had 6 different metrics that we needed to work on to get to improve the value of the business, because that's really one of my main focuses right now is improving the value of the business. One key thing. So there are a couple keys where we're doing just great. There were a couple keys where we're probably falling short a bit. One of them is with documented succession, wealth succession within families, and the other one is simply adding new clients. So the money that I put into Lattice relates to those two things primarily. Adding new clients I want. I get referrals all the time, and I take most of them because they're referrals. But there's a couple certain types of client profiles that are the most fun to work with because they're very complicated and they kind of suit my strengths, and also they are the most lucrative to work with. So the money that we're putting into marketing relates to my marketing person, which I call a director of communications, as well as resources around that business development in the more interesting areas that I'm trying to pursue. Is that a good answer? Do you want more?
I think that's good. It sounds like there's business process enhancement, and there's also like how do you develop and grow your business organically by doing outbound rather than like inbound is great because that's just consistent revenue, but the outbound is kind of where the challenges are and where you need to be creative about how you're approaching that outbound.
Let me add one other thing because I think it'd be useful to your listeners. Um,
Sure.
I have hired coaches in the past, and I've not found that to be effective. I've not found that to be effective because every business is different, and therefore institutional approaches that generally work in the business don't necessarily fit every practice. So what I've found to be a far better solution for me personally is I read a lot of books. And most of those books I can take a nugget or two out of, and I can use them to enhance my position. So I think that those financial advisors that choose to hire a coach need to go into it not as, oh, I'm going to hire this coach, they're all the same. It's kind of like financial advisors aren't all the same, coaches aren't all the same either. But they need to be very thoughtful on what they're trying to accomplish, and they need to make sure that on a very granular level, the coaches they hire address those areas. If you just hire a coach because you think any coach will do, I think you're going to lose money. But if you take your time and find the right coach, I think it's useful. But taking your time and finding the right quote with the right coach requires a ton of research. And many people aren't that interested in doing that kind of research. So that could be helpful to your listeners too.
Okay. What's like a recent challenge you've run into in running the business, and how did you deal with it?
I would say my biggest challenge is logistics. I need to be a lot of different places. And what that leads to is managing my workforce in such a way that everything but client contact someone else is doing. There are very few things other than client contact that I do. There are some. I mean, I'm probably the most sensitive to market issues and portfolio issues, but that doesn't mean I do the blocking and tackling. That means I'm the coach on those things. My main focus. So it's a Monday right now. What do I do on Monday? I have calls with every one of my staff members to make sure we're all rowing the same direction. That takes up the bulk of Monday. I may end up having a few calls that are primarily incoming, but most of Mondays are about getting every one of my staff. And again, there's several people, and where I've made mistakes in the past, the most recently is just believing that everyone is going to do their job. Because what I see as their job and what they see as their job is oftentimes not the same. So so maintaining contact with all the staff, and I got staff all over the place. I got multiple venues in California that I have to think about where staff is. So that's the biggest challenge for me, given what I'm doing, and that's the way I've chosen to address it. Lots of contact.
Fair enough. How do you differentiate your company from the other advisors out there?
So there's a couple different ways. Number one, if someone has referred to me, whoever has referred them have given me enough, bona fides, enough accolades that there's really not much to do there, because they already, as long as the chemistry is okay, then they're going to work with me. For others, I've spent a lot of time and effort on the website, and the website is not designed. There's hundreds of financial advisor websites, and they're all kind of taking the approach of this is us and aren't we special, which is okay. But I'm taking the approach of there are 2 or 3 specific situations where I think we are better than other people. And what I'm trying to do is, on those 3 situations, use the website to take people through the buyer's journey. Why does the buyer show up? Because they have these kinds of problems, X, Y, Z problems. These are the things they're struggling with. why are we best suited for that? And then we go into staffing and details. And then finally, how do we interact? So I'd like to believe that, we're in a world right now where the first thing people will check out when they get introduced to somebody is their website. So I'd like to believe that our website is in a constant state of adjustment to get that right, to tell the buyer that I'm looking for, what I think their journey is and how I think we can help them solve their problems. And there's nothing really about
Is
markets.
there any specific? Say that again.
There's nothing really about markets on the website, because that's, to my way of thinking, that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to solve their problems using the best vehicle possible. And in many, probably almost all cases, that's using the equity and fixed income markets.
So it's a very specific product mix case too. They come to you. They're they have a specific challenge in their mind, and I'm thinking about the non-referrals, right? They come to you. They see, oh, I look. This is a similar character to me. This might work. And then you try to figure out what are their goals and how can we use a very simple business case or like asset class to solve their goals.
So I'm going to take so one of the things that is very controversial about my thoughts versus others who are considered financial advisors is the goal is singular. The goal is singular. Just build wealth. Forget about all those other things. Oh, geez, I want to buy a car. I want to put my kid through school. Don't worry about those things. So long as you focus your activity and your resources on building wealth, those things get solved. Those things are addressed. So most people who consider themselves financial advisors or financial planners are worried about these little goals. I'm just worried about helping these folks build wealth. That's the key in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Is there a kind of average client that you guys work with?
Well, so if you were to look at our book of business right now, the average age is somewhere between 60 and 70. The average net worth that we deal with is somewhere between 2 and 6 million. We have outliers on both ends of that, but that's kind of the average. That's kind of where the centering numbers are. It's an individual client. In some cases, that individual owns a company. In other cases, they're retired, and we can pretty much cover that range of different things. But we have about 100 clients. That's good capacities for right now. The challenge that every advisor faces, and I certainly face, is in terms of age, I have plenty that are north of 80 years old, and I'm dealing with estates, and I'm dealing with heirs, and sometimes they stay with us, and other times they don't. So as we seek new business that's probably south of 50 years old, 50 and south, with some kind of wealth or potential to grow wealth.
Mm-hmm. How do you get new clients?
Well, again, I would say that in any given quarter, 2 or 3 or 4 people just referred to us. We have a conversation. That initial conversation is going to tell both me and who the referral is whether there's a basis for proceeding. So we'll go through 2 or 3 conversations, and once I can identify really what the initial thing is we need to do, we'll work on that. To cite 2 very recent examples, one of them achieved a windfall, but she'd never owned a house in her life. So the first goal was getting her a house. That didn't involve me, but that was the first goal. Another one, very busy, single mother in her 40s. She had tried financial advisors from banks, but in all honesty, they're so focused on revenue because they're forced to by their bank that she was turned off by that. So she ended up coming to me because, again, her main focus was getting her dad She's a single mom. She wanted to have her dad help her out raising her kids, getting her dad some kind of place to live close by her. She had plenty of money. We solved that problem, and now we're working on other things. But the idea is, okay, let's find the initial problem. I don't care if it involves stocks and bonds, real estate, insurance. I have another one. The first thing we needed was a life insurance policy. I don't really care what it involves. Let's solve that problem, and then let's kind of build on beyond that to help build wealth.
Mm-hmm. So those are kind of examples of, it sounds like, inbound, right?
Well, they were all referrals.
Okay. What type of outbound are you doing?
Our focus is on business owners pre and post sale. I I was very thoughtful about that, and frankly, I'm thoughtful. I like pre and post sale because we have the most to add to that group of people. They have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of input. They need an honest broker. They need someone who's going to tell them the truth and without some kind of hidden agenda, and who's not going to try to blow smoke up their backside. They need someone direct, someone who's been through all the stuff they've been through or is in the process of doing it. So we become the honest broker. So pre-sale, a lot of work to do to sell a business. Post-sale, now you have all these new moving parts and new people that are depending on you. There's things that need to be done. So I like those because they're very complex, number one. And frankly, number two is they're very lucrative. There's a lot of things where we can add value and generate revenue.
Yeah. What are some creative ways that you've gone out and tried to get those new pieces of business?
I have someone who provides me lists of people like that. We use LinkedIn, we use direct mail, we try to engage. I have multiple different networking groups that I'm very active in. I would say for your listeners, the key is to go out there and play in traffic. Go out there and talk to people. And also to realize, this came up in a book I read lately. When you initially meet someone, make it feel like you're dating. So when you're dating and you meet someone you like, that doesn't mean you're going to ask them to marry you tomorrow. It's going to take time. You're going to have dates. You're going to have to get to know each other, get to know things before you do anything meaningful. It's the same with new clients. If they fit the profile that you want, don't be antsy. Give them time. Give them things to learn about you so they know what you do, what you don't do. And the main thing is keep engaged. Don't forget, if people meet your profile, be pleasantly persistent. Keep talking to them. And eventually, either there will or there won't be a comfort level, but in so many cases, if you're putting the time in, the comfort level will show up and good things will happen. It could take a month, it could take a year, it could take 5 years. Doesn't matter. Just keep trudging away.
You've mentioned multiple times books. You've written, or you're in the process of writing a second book. How do those fit into the business?
Well, I think the books are very synergistic. The first book was written for young financial advisors. And it was very technical in nature. One of the main things I wanted to make sure people recognized is that this push in the industry toward international investing and things like that is totally flawed. It's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. I have the research. I know what I'm talking about. It was a little bit wonky. It was a little bit too technical. I wrote that right after I left the big firm and it was somewhat cathartic. And it sold a few copies, but where it really adds value is when I send it to new clients, and rather than giving them a business card, I literally have a book and it tells people how we do business. I've discovered though that few people read it because it's a little bit too complicated to read. The second book I began writing this year. I think it'll be out next year, and it more relates to how confusing the landscape is within financial advice. I'll give you an example. I'm in a networking group. I'm going to an event on Friday. I get a list a few days prior on everybody who's attending. there were at least 4 financial advisors. Each of those 4 do different things, everything from insurance to investment banking, and they all call themselves financial advisors. So if you're John Q. Public, you're 50 years old, you have a couple bucks, you need some guidance, you realize you need some guidance, who do you turn to? Do you turn to your life insurance agent because he'll take your business? Do you turn to a financial planner because she'll do a financial plan for you? Do you go to an investment banker because he's got a brother-in-law who works for a big bank? It's very, very confusing. So the second book is trying to help people figure out who to hire, and also when to fire them, because at different phases in one's life, different skill sets are important. So you can't look at a financial advisor as an advisor for life, because if you're not evolving as a financial advisor and they are as a client, at some point you guys become irrelevant to one another.
Is there if people want to reach out and get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Well, I could give you an email address or a phone number, but maybe the best solution is I go into LinkedIn every day because that's part of my marketing plan. I look at people who have emailed me, and they do every day for different reasons. Some are soliciting business, some are just trying to reach out and tell me things. I would say go to it's Michael Ross, my LinkedIn, and email me and maybe give me a phone number or something like that, and we can talk from that.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been great. I will cut it right there, and we can. I'll be sharing this with other financial advisors so they can learn from your experience.
Thank you. Good deal.